Hello everybody and welcome to episode 36 of my World of Warcraft series. We are currently level 34 on our human mage, and today we are going on a bit of an adventure at the start of this episode, and then we'll get into some questing later on. But today I am wanting to head into Stranglethorn Vale, and I'm wanting to explore this new map for the first time ever. This map is absolutely huge. It is a level 30 to level 45 map, so there's a lot of opportunity here to do a lot of questing for a very long time during this Let's Play series. But Stranglethorn Vale is actually a map that I'm not wanting to spend too much time in. I am currently planning on kind of spending this episode exploring a bunch of Stranglethorn Vale, and then maybe we will return around like level 45 to do some of the higher level quests if you need a little bit of extra experience once you're a little bit at a higher level and maybe running out of quests in some areas of the world. I'm wanting to dive in depth into Stranglethorn Vale on other characters that we play through, and I'm wanting to mostly devote our time towards other maps here in the Eastern Kingdoms, but nevertheless I still want to run through here, and there's a bunch of important story that we are going to look at today and a bunch of cool quests and locations, but for the most part we are going to explore. So let's begin our exploration by running to Stranglethorn Vale, which the entrance to that map is here in Duskwood and about the middle here of the map that we can see. So let's go there now. So we are approaching the northern tip of Stranglethorn Vale now, and we're going to start seeing a very dramatic change from Duskwood, which is a very sad, gloomy, dark area, into Stranglethorn Vale, which is a very lush and green jungle. And we have this cool bridge right here, and we have now entered Stranglethorn Vale, and right off the bat we can see it is a jungle. So let's go ahead and run over here where we actually have an alliance camp that we can go ahead and take a quick look at, but we are going to return here in a little bit, and there are some other quests around here that we can see. But here we can see that there is a rebel camp up here, and they are allied with Stormwind, but there is a little bit of a situation going on here. So we can go ahead and talk to some of the quest givers around here, and let's go ahead and see exactly what this camp is and who these people are. So we have the sergeant here. Let's go ahead and look at this quest here of the Second Rebellion. We're fighting a losing battle with Colonel Curzon. Not only is he a brilliant tactician, he outnumbers us at least 10 to 1. To survive, we need to use his own covert tactics against him. Enter his camp to the east and kill his men, lots of them, and get out before reinforcements can close on you. So we can go ahead and accept this quest. And then we also have this bad medicine quest here, where in order to have a chance to fight against Curzon, we need his healing support neutralized. So we can go ahead and do just that. And then let's go ahead and talk to Corporal Caleb here, and we have this quest here to bring Krazik's crockpot to Krazik the Goblin. And the Corporal says, I do most of the cooking at the camp, and it used to be a lot of work until I bought a mechanical cooking pot from a goblin merchant in Booty Bay. The pot is a wonder. It saved me countless hours until it broke. Can you take the pot back to the goblin for me so he can fix it? His name is Krazik. So we can go ahead and accept this quest. And now let's go ahead and run deeper into Stranglethorn Vale. So this camp actually does not have a flight path, so if we want to run far away from here, we actually have to fly back to Darkshire, or we have to run all the way here in order to return to this camp. And why do I say that? Well, that's because I'm wanting to return here in a little bit, but I'm first wanting to do the quest that we just picked up of Krazik's Cookery and to run to Booty Bay. So there are several quests here that we will be doing in a little bit, but we're going to ignore them for now. We're going to talk more about Curzon and basically everything that is going on with that. But let's go ahead and run through Stranglethorn Vale, and if you take a look at the map here, you can see that we are at the very northern tip of the jungle right now. And in order to get to Booty Bay, we have to go to the very southern tip. And I believe this is either the largest or second largest map in the entire game, the other contender being the Barrens and Kalimdor. So Booty Bay is one of the major goblin towns in vanilla World of Warcraft, where there is the Steam Weedle cartel of goblins, which basically are not allied to either the Horde or Alliance. They are neutral to both factions. While they originally helped the Horde when the Horde first came to Azeroth, they quickly decided that the best way to make a lot of money is to help both sides. So basically Booty Bay is kind of like a neutral grounds for both the Horde and Alliance to hang out in. And it is a port town on the southern tip of Stranglethorn, so there's like some nice fishing, and there's a boat that will take us to another goblin city called Ratchet. There are 3 goblin cities in the western continent of Kalimdor: Ratchet, Everlook, and Gadgetzan, and we are probably not going to be looking at any of those towns in this series. We're going to do it in future series, but we are just going to take a quick sneak peek at Booty Bay in this series and in this episode. But this will provide us a little bit of an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the Steam Module Cartel and to learn about Booty Bay as a whole. But a very interesting part about Booty Bay is that while it is in Eastern Kingdoms and while it is close to Stormwind, it is actually significantly easier for people of the Horde in order to get to Booty Bay compared to the Alliance. Where Stranglethorn Vale is a level 30 to 45 map, and it is a very long run through this map, and any Alliance players that want to get to Booty Bay have to do it by running all the way through Stranglethorn Vale, all the way from the north down to the south. Where the other way to get to Booty Bay is, as I mentioned, that Booty Bay is a port town. The boat from Ratchet will take you there, and Ratchet is a town that is very close to Orgrimmar and Thunderbluff, 2 of the Horde cities, Orgrimmar being like the main Horde city for the Horde in Kalimdor. And Ratchet is located in the Barrens, which is the second zone for the Horde, specifically for the Orcs, the Trolls, and the Taurens in Kalimdor. So it's significantly easier in order to get to Ratchet, and distance-wise it is also much faster. Where in order for the Alliance to get to Ratchet, they have to either do the trek through Stranglethorn Vale and get to Booty Bay and take the boat there, or they have to go to Minotho Harbor, which is also a little bit of a long run, and then they have to go to either Theramore Isle or Auberdyne, and then they have to run through Kalimdor and then get to Ratchet in order to take the boat to Booty Bay. So that is significantly longer than making this trek through Stranglethorn Vale. It might be a little easier if you go to Theramore and then you just swim to Ratchet if you are able to avoid all the threats in the water there. But today we are just going to be running through Stranglethorn Vale, and we will explore everything as we come through here, and we're going to ignore these high level mobs as best we can. But we have just discovered the Cape of Stranglethorn, which is the southern half of Stranglethorn Vale, so we are already halfway there as I've talked through this episode. And we are about to come up to a really cool area that I'm going to completely ignore, and we're going to kind of see as we explore through this zone that there's a ton of troll influence here, and we can see that there's some troll architecture here. We talked a lot about the trolls in the last episode, but around here is the Gurubashi Empire, and here we have the Gurubashi Arena, which is a very cool location for people who are interested in kind of like PvP, where once every 3 hours a goblin from Booty Bay will go down into the arena. We can actually like take a quick sneak peek. Let's go ahead and do that. We are entering into the arena, and we can see that there are some skeletons down there, and basically the goblin would put a chest in the center of the arena, and there would be a nice trinket inside that if you collect 12 of them, you can actually upgrade it into like an even better trinket. But anybody who is inside the arena will be flagged for PvP, and not only will they be flagged for PvP, they will be flagged for like free-for-all PvP. So instead of just fighting the opposite faction, where if we were Alliance we'd be fighting the Horde, you're fighting everybody, even people of your own faction. And there is only one chest with one trinket inside, so there's only one person that will be able to claim that reward, and they can only claim that reward once every 3 hours. Something really fun is that they added a second version of that in the Cataclysm expansion with the Darkmoon Fair, which is something that we have not explored yet. But a little fun fact about that is that it was either like server 3rd or server 4th in winning that battle, where I won it at like 9 a.m. server time, and I think by the time that the patch had gone through, it had done it like 4 times. Because the Darkmoon Fair started the first Monday of the first week of the first month that had occurred after the patch had dropped. Here we have Samantha Swifthoof, not really a big important character. I think she's a tribute to someone, but just wanders from Booty Bay to the northern tip of Stranglethorn Vale, kind of doing the same journey that we are right now, but doing it by walking. Another really cool thing about Booty Bay is that I had mentioned that it is a big fishing area where there is a Stranglethorn fishing tournament that occurs, which basically happens I think once a week, where everybody can come to Stranglethorn Vale, and then when the fishing tournament starts they were able to catch a specific type of fish, and then like the first person to catch like 30 or 40 of them are able to run to Booty Bay and return there in order to turn the quest in, and then they would win the fishing tournament and they would win some prizes. But now we are at the southern tip of Stranglethorn Vale. We have made our journey here, and we now have the entrance to Booty Bay. So let's go ahead and walk past these goblins here, where we see some Booty Bay bruisers. We have seen some goblins in the past even some goblins from Booty Bay. But now let's go ahead and run through this cool entrance here, and we can run past all these goblins, and we can see this is a very cool area. I really like this little piece of like decoration here where you can't really get in there, but there's like some props and stuff back there. Very cool. But we can go ahead and enter Booty Bay, and we were running through the jungle, and now that we can see, we are entering the port city of Booty Bay, and it is just a really cool place. But let's go ahead and wander around here a little bit. Down here we can see the dock, and we can see a giant statue of a goblin there. And we have a boat coming in right now, and this boat would take us to Ratchet if we wanted to go on it, but we are not going to go on it as well. Let's go ahead and just go on a little tour of the city here. We have the Old Port Authority right here, which is kind of like a merchant area where there are actually some like special things that we can buy. We have pirate supplies right here where we can buy some parrot cages, and then we have a cook that sells some cooking recipes, some fishing recipes, and then there is also a fishing trainer down here, and I believe this is where you come in order to level up to the highest level of fishing that you can. But if we run through here, we can go ahead and come into the Salty Sailor Tavern, which is the tavern here in Booty Bay, and we have some quests that we can pick up. We have Seeming Blue Crystals, and I think I'll go ahead and accept this quest. We might do it, but I might go ahead and drop that quest. I'm just going to pick up a few quests around here just to have them in my quest log. But if we run all the way up here, I'm going to go ahead and just run through here really quickly. And we have Baron Revel guys here.
Well met, traveler. There's opportunity to be had here if you're clever enough.
And he says, "Welcome to Booty Bay, partner. I hope your stay in my town is enjoyable and uneventful. Emphasis on the latter. We've got plenty of drink if you're thirsty and plenty of bouncers if you're antsy. Now then, what can this humble servant of the Steam Needle Cartel do for you? Better still, what can you do for me, eh?" But now we can go ahead and run over here, and we see that this is the Horde flight path. I am very much not going to attack that flight master. Running back into the tavern here, we can go ahead and I'm not going to pick up either of these quests from Kabak here. But let's go ahead and turn this quest in to Krazak here, and we can go ahead and turn in this pot. And then he wants us to pick up some lesser bloodstone ore, which we can actually get in the Arathi Highlands, but it requires us to mine, and unfortunately we are not miners, so that is kind of the end of that quest chain here, so let's go ahead and decline that. But let's go ahead and pick up this supplies to Private Thorson, so we can go ahead and deliver these to Private Thorson, who is near the rebel camp all the way up north. And then we have two other quests here, which we could go ahead and just turn in this quest because it's just talking to Baron Revel Gaz. And then the other quest here, investigate the camp. It's a very important quest, but is a quest that I'm going to save for a future Let's Play series. Let's go ahead and just turn this quest in, and then we got 290 experience. And then I'll go ahead and do this quest, but I'm not going to do the full quest chain. Two things left that I want to do. The first is to check out the Alliance Flight Master, because it is a very good idea that we pick up the flight path here so that we can fly back and forth. Let's go ahead and talk to Gil here, and now we can see that a lot of the Eastern Kingdoms is now connected for us, where we can fly to Stormwind, to Ironforge, and to South Shore now, and many other places in between. Just notice that we have a quest over here that we can pick up, which is a supply and demand quest, which again, I might not do this quest, but I'm going to go ahead and pick it up just to have it in my inventory. And now let's go ahead and run down here and look at the last big location here in Booty Bay, and that is the Stranglethorn Trust Bank. And this is a really cool area because it is a banking area, and we can actually access our bank here. That's kind of a mess, and I just saw that we have some bolts of silkcloth in here, which I should probably use in my tailoring. But really cool is right here is that there's an auctioneer, and we are going to see that in the Goblin cities where they serve both the Alliance and the Horde, there is a separate auction house. So on every single server in Classic WoW, there are 3 auction houses. There is the Alliance auction house, where we have been using that auction house for the whole time, where only members of the Alliance can trade with each other on there. There is the Horde auction house, where only members of the Horde can trade with each other, and that is located in the major Horde cities. And then there's a neutral auction house located in the Goblin cities, where everybody, Alliance and Horde, can trade with each other. So we can go ahead and just take a quick look at this. There are a ton of quest items for the quest here in Stranglethorn Vale. But there's just a variety of different materials that you could find on any auction house. But a really cool part about this is that you can actually obtain items from the opposite faction that you couldn't normally obtain on the faction that you're playing as. So this could include like cooking recipes, or I believe even companion pets, which are like cosmetic miniature pets that will run around with you. And there's not a ton of stuff on this cluster here in Classic WoW, but we can go ahead and we have King the Decapitator, which is a two-handed axe, which looks pretty cool. We have a mystical robe of Shadow Wrath, which also looks decently cool. There's some lesser bloodstone ore here, which actually, 2 gold, let's go ahead and just buy this. I think we could go ahead and turn that quest in. So let's go ahead and run back towards this mailbox here, and then we could go pick up that quest. The mailbox is right next to the auctioneer Athos. Let's go ahead and chat with the Krasik, and then we can do favor for Krasik, and we completed the quest. So let's go ahead and turn this in. We are not miners, but we bought from a miner, and now we can return this fixed pot to Corporal Caleb. So let's go ahead and accept this quest. And then if you noticed in our reputation here, we have now unlocked the Steam Weedle Cartel to show up here. I went and talked to a League of Aerithor person last episode, but now we have Booty Bay, Everlook, Gadgetzan, and Ratchet. And we also have the Bloodsail Buccaneers, which is a faction of pirates, and it says these bloodthirsty corsairs are the bane of many a merchant in the high seas, sworn enemies of Booty Bay. And these pirates are high level, so we're not going to be dealing with them just yet, but at some point we will. You might have seen that we ran past a few while we were running into Booty Bay. I was just quickly beelining past them. But now we can go ahead and head to the flight path, and we can take a griffin back towards Darkshire, and then we can return to the rebel camp. So when we are looking at the lore and story of Stranglethorn Vale, there's a ton of stuff going on here, but looking specifically at the northeastern corner of this map at the Curzon's compound and the quest that you pick up at the rebel camp, there's kind of not a lot to talk about here, where Curzon's compound is a very interesting location, and I think for the most part it is mostly just a reference to the movie Apocalypse Now, which I actually watched in high school. But like overall to the story here, there's not a lot going on outside of just like the existence of the quests that you do for experience and gold, where kind of the story that's being told here is that there is this group of humans that were, I believe, once part of like Stormwind. They were sent into Stranglethorn Vale to basically try to build up bases around here, and they built like this compound as like a starting point, and they were basically going to try to like establish themselves in Stranglethorn Vale so that the Alliance, or specifically Stormwind, has fortifications in the Vale, and is kind of to expand the Kingdom of Stormwind, because Stranglethorn Vale is now a location south of the Kingdom of Stormwind that there's not much human influence here except for this compound here, where Colonel Curzon, who's the leader of this compound, basically had all of his troops come here and they built this compound. But basically at some point this Colonel Curzon became corrupted or manipulated by troll magic and basically kind of just went evil. And then there was a shift in his forces here at the compound, where like a large group of his forces kind of continued following in his path and basically took his, albeit strange, orders and continued following them out. But a smaller group realized that there's something odd going on with the Colonel, and they basically rebelled against the entire compound and basically fled northwest a little and built a rebel camp where they're now enlisting the aid of the Alliance to deal with this issue that is going on. But other than that, this is just kind of like a little bit of a fun questing area, and it actually kind of lasts for a while, where like the earlier quests in this area is like level 32, and then the highest level quests are level 38, and we're not going to spend too much time doing all those higher level quests. I just kind of wanted to poke around this area and do some of the lower level quests. But once I finished these quests, I decided to leave this area and start working on some of the other quests that I wanted to do here in northern Stranglethorn Vale, which led me to reaching level 35, which means I got another talent point, which is very nice. With level 35, we can now go a line further down into the talent tree, and we are ever so closer to reaching the level 40 talent. But while we are in this area, I kind of wanted to point out this giant river located here called the Nazferati River that is actually one of the longest rivers in all of the Eastern Kingdoms. It starts in the southern peaks of Redridge Mountains, and it is the river that we basically kind of been traveling across the entire time we've been in the Kingdom of Stormwind, where it starts in the Redridge Mountains and there's a waterfall in southwestern Redridge, and then it flows west bordering Duskwood and Elven Forest. So when we were in Elven Forest and Duskwood and we were looking south and north across the river, river respectively, we were looking at this river, and then it started flowing south through Westfall, and it kind of bordered Westfall and Elven Forest and Duskwood, and it makes its way here into Stranglethorn Vale until it eventually pours out into the western Great Sea, which is located further west of here. So it's just a very prominent river that goes through like 5 zones, and kind of oddly enough, it has the most emphasis in Stranglethorn Vale, where yeah, the mouth of the river is here, but there's also a bunch of crocolisks along this river where you do quests for people in Booty Bay. I think this river being very prominent in Stranglethorn Vale is kind of symbolic of how big of a zone Stranglethorn Vale is. It covers 15 levels, and we are just in like the northern tip of it right now, and we walked all the way to Booty Bay at the start of this episode, but there are quests down there that we are not going to be doing for like 10 more levels. And this is a zone that I'm only going to be touching in this Let's Play series, and I have plans if I ever get to another Let's Play series in this like series of Let's Play series that I'm doing with World of Warcraft Classic, we'll be spending more time in this zone from the Horde perspective, so it was nice to do like a little bit of an Alliance perspective at the start here. But there's just so much stuff going on here, which we will see over time as we return to the zone in this Let's Play episode later on, and as we return in future Let's Play series. But one of the biggest parts of the zone is the trolls that are located here. But we spent a large part of last episode talking about the troll wars, which involved the Imani trolls, and then in the episode we were fighting Witherbark trolls. But there's a lot of troll stuff going on here in Stranglethorn Vale, which, to just touch on it a little bit, the largest tribe of trolls located here in Stranglethorn Vale is the Gurubashi Empire. And where like the Imani trolls further north kind of focused on a ton of Loas, which are basically kind of like their gods, the Gurubashi trolls focused on one Loa, Hakar the Soul Flayer, and we see that this is very problematic for them because Hakar requires a lot of like blood sacrifices, so the Gurubashi sacrificed a ton of trolls in order to empower the god, who said he would give them like protection and whatnot. But we see that there's a lot of history and war in this area of the world where the Gurubashi trolls fought the humans, and then they also fought the orcs when the orcs came to Azeroth, and there was basically a group of orcs called the Bleeding Hollow clan that went into Stranglethorn Vale and basically tried to conquer it as well. But other than all those wars happening, we see a lot of division happening within the Gurubashi Empire, where like basically we see a group of trolls that are very dedicated to the Bloodloa and basically followed exactly what he said. And this caused civil war between the trolls, where most of the trolls rallied together against this group of people that were very dedicated to Hakar and basically drove the Bloodloa out of the world, and he didn't return until a long time later in World of Warcraft, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on in the series. But after the civil war that happened a long time ago, and then after the war against the humans and the war against the orcs that happened relatively recently, there's not a lot of stuff that is going on here. But we see that the Gurubashi tribe kind of just stagnates, and they begin just in general losing a lot of power and a lot of strength. And we kind of see this too with other tribes here in the jungle called the Bloodscalp tribe and the Skull Splitter tribe, where they're all kind of weak, and this kind of just leads to where we are today. But there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and that is another tribe of trolls called the Dark Spirit tribe, which were also once part of the Gurubashi Empire. And basically, as the Gurubashi Empire crumbled after the Civil War, we see all these tribes that were part of the Empire that we've talked about, as well as more that we haven't talked about yet, kind of just go their own separate ways and do their own things. One of these tribes were the Dark Spirit Trolls, and basically they were at war with the other tribes here in Stranglethorn, the Gurubashi, the Bloodscalp, and the Skull Splitter. And they were really struggling in these lands, and then they were eventually forced out of Stranglethorn Vale and started sailing west, where later on in the series we're going to talk a lot more about the Dark Spirit tribe in general. But basically, during Warcraft 3, they were found by the orcs of the Horde that were left here in the Eastern Kingdoms, and those orcs were making their way west to Kalimdor, and the Dark Spirit tribe was basically helped by these orcs and then were incorporated into the Horde, and now the trolls that we see today in the Horde are part of the Dark Spirit tribe originally. But this is just another taste of troll lore, and we're going to be talking about troll lore basically our entire time at playing World of Warcraft, because they're very integral to the history of this planet and of this series, and their influence can be seen literally everywhere we go. So we'll be talking more about them moving forward. But one other thing that I want to talk about is kind of like my goals for like this Let's Play series, because I mentioned last episode that I was kind of trying something new with editing, and you see today I am also trying something new with editing, and I'm trying to figure out what I like and what I don't like, and I kind of have some thoughts that I'm formulating. But I think like first and foremost, I'm just going to continue doing what I want and change things how I see it as it happens, where basically what I'm in the mood for is what I'm going to be doing, and what I enjoy doing is what I'm going to be doing, which is probably a really good model to live by. But I definitely like how I'm changing things up with this series, but I'm not 100% sure if I like how exactly I've changed it up. So I might be adjusting things a little bit more in the future, where like this video is a little bit different than the last video, and I think the next video might be even a little bit more different. We'll just see what happens when it happens. But other than that, I've completed all my quests here in Northern Stranglethorn, so I started making my journey around Stranglethorn to go turn in all these quests, where I started heading back to the rebel camp, and I saw this really cool horde character, and then I also had this opportunity to go pick up this quest as well, which is just an event where one person at the rebel camp was basically going towards Curzon's compound and was basically pretending to be like a rebel to the rebels, where this rebel was basically going to manipulate his way back into the colonel's forces so that he could spy on them, but somehow the colonel's forces knew about this and everything went awry, so we had to save his life. And then we went to the rebel camp and we turned in all these quests, and then I just ran back to Darkshire so I could take a flight path down to Booty Bay so I could turn in all the quests around the city. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this episode good here. Hope you all enjoyed watching this episode, and if you have any thoughts about anything, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. But I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time in the world of Azeroth. Goodbye.